how do I define it? This is a formula that I've created, and it's basically high ceiling equals your capacity to extract meaning from experience. So it's an extraction rate thing. It's some people take more from their experiences. Some people take less, and it all works on a spectrum. And people who are deep thinkers, I believe, are those that are proactively extracting as much as they can from any given experience that is given and gifted to them in their lives. And they're basically meaning hungry. They have a massive appetite for meaning, and they're constantly searching for it. And so this gives them this ability to think really deeply and experience and feel really deeply and just be living life in this really rich, deep way. So that's what it is. I think that the human experience is a very deep thing. This is something I say every single video because I don't want anyone to be... Luckily, the algorithm is sending me like all these amazing people who are totally on the same wavelength here, and who also feel like super misunderstood. But I do feel like I do need to just disclaimer that we're not sitting here with our noses up and being all snooty about this, that we're better than anyone. It's just like admitting that someone is more beautiful than another person, or someone is more intelligent, or someone is more naturally athletically inclined. I'm putting depth in the same category, deep thinking, in the same category, which is that it's a natural gift, it's a strength. It's not something that I worked for, it's something that was given to me. It was something that was innate, something that was born. And so therefore I'm not going to feel proud of it. And that's, to quote Monica Bellucci on beauty, I believe the same thing about depth, right? It's not something that I should be proud of. It's not something that I should brag about, because it's not something that I earned. But it definitely is something that I am, and just like a beautiful person, just like an intelligent person, just like an athletic person, I should be allowed to own that, and I should be allowed to monetize that. I should be allowed to utilize that. That strength should be able to be of service to other people in this world, in this society, in my work. And that's where my frustration lies. That's why I speak about this on this channel, because I truly believe that it's one of the most underrated, underestimated, and underutilized skill sets that are out there. And it makes me frustrated that we don't accept depth as a category in and of itself, and then actually not exploit, but like capitalize on people that are deep and put them in the correct positions, i.e. leadership roles specifically. Not every leadership role, but like definitely a lot, because we have this amorphous kind of critical thinking capacity that's able to shift and change and genuinely morph into different shapes, and we can think outside of our box, and our map of reality can expand infinitely. So I think that I just want justice for us. I think that we're amazing, and that we should be celebrated, and we should be recognized for this gift, just like people with intelligence do, just like people who are beautiful do, just like people who are athletic do. Like, I want to go to the Olympics, but it be for depth. I want to go to, I want to win a Nobel Prize, but it be for depth. I want to win a beauty pageant. I don't know, I'm drawing weird conclusions now. Okay, so counter arguments. So I've explained what high ceiling is. Now we're gonna explore the intersections of high ceiling versus intelligence, which I have already been through, but I'll just go through again for funsies, just short and simple. High ceiling versus Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So is it a privilege to think this way? Am I a result of positive parenting, of my survival needs being met? Does that just free up more space for me to think this way? And then the next one is high ceiling versus consciousness, and high ceiling versus my personal favorite, articulation and communication. Is it just someone's ability to communicate what's going on internally to the external landscape really well? And maybe everyone is a deep thinker, And maybe like, we're all out here thinking about what is the meaning of life every day, and just people aren't able to express how they feel inside. I mean, I know for a fact that most people are not sitting here thinking about the meaning of life every day. I know for a fact that I do, and not in an existential way where it's like making me depressed and cynical, but in a way that's inspiring and curious and explorative and in awe. So anyway, back to my oh wait, that's the other disclaimer I was supposed to say, is that just like every video that I say that depth is like the human experience is a deep thing. That's something I recognize. I will always recognize. I think every single human is having a very deep, rich experience. But are people thinking deeply? I don't think so. I think that's a different thing. But okay, let's get into it, right? So also, sorry, one last disclaimer. I don't know anything. I'm not particularly, I don't have any qualifications or education on this topic. This is just all my thinking. So just take everything that I say with a grain of salt. This is all exploration purposes. This is all just like to keep a visual log for my future self to look back on and keep adding to these. And hopefully something will come of it. But anyway, so high ceiling versus intelligence, depth versus intelligence, and the intersection. What is the difference between depth and intelligence? For me, depth works on a separate plane to, it's a separate dimension to intelligence. So intelligence, I feel like, is 2D. It's like a square, and depth is like thinking like a cube. And the way I draw this out is, if you picture a graph, it's sort of like maybe that intelligence is the horizontal axis and depth is, oh my god, 333 as I'm saying this. Oh guys, so many good things have happened this week, and today's gonna be a good day because I saw 333. Isn't that funny? So intelligence works this way and depth works this way. And I think that people who think in an intelligent, conscientious way are thinking really linearly, and people who think deeply are thinking downwards. So intelligence is faster because you're just going through the thing. You're not going through the thing. You're skimming on top of it and you're getting to the next point. It's an accumulation of data points across a horizontal axis. Whereas deep is you're moving fully through each thing before going to the next thing. Does that make sense? And the way I can best explain this is, the people who are intelligent are what? They're what people. They need to know what. They need to know what happened. They're collecting data points. And the people who are deep need to know why. They need to get to the bottom, to the root of everything. And this is the reason I figured out recently why sometimes in life I can be a little bit slow. And I had a manager tell me, you're super smart, but sometimes you can be super blonde. And I really get it, because you say really smart things and then you say really dumb things. And I'm like, this explains most. By the way, this is like so all in good faith and fun. I wasn't offended at all. I was just like, what? Like, why? Yeah, he's right. Like, I mean, I've always known that about myself. But then I realized that it's because I am trying to get to the bottom of everything before moving on. And it's like, until I find the root, I can't move to the next thing. And so whilst everyone else is just powering through, skimming on top, skimming on the surface of most things and just moving through to the next thing, I'm like going all the way down and then going to the next point. So it's like, while everyone's going what, sorry, what, I'm going what, why, what, why, what, why. See how it's slower? But then I end up having more, like in the long run, more information than other people. which is kind of fun. I like it. And it also like surprises people because they think I'm blonde and I'm like, ah, you weren't ready for that. Anyway, next. So that's intelligence versus depth. And intelligence, I believe, is more akin to conscientiousness, which is one of the big 5 personality traits, which is your ability to kind of repeat, to do sort of worker bee mode, to follow instructions, tasks on a to-do list. They're the worker bees of our society. So that, I believe, is like flat intelligence. And I think people who are like obviously really intelligent need like a good mix of depth and intelligence. But for me personally, I think I'm more deep than I am intelligent. Obviously, you can see that my whys, I'm more skewed towards the whys than the what. But I think someone who has a balance of what and why are probably the people that end up, you know, being in medical research and writing PhDs. And actually, I've heard a lot of people say that writing a PhD, depending on what the thesis is and what you're studying, is pretty conscientious nowadays. But anyway, I think that people who have a balance of equal proportionality between their whats and their whys, maybe they're the ones that are like, you know, your Nobel Prize winners, your Neil deGrasse Tysons, your, I don't know, maybe that's what it is. Because when I think about it, right, like you think about like maybe a shape of thinking. This is really cool because I was exploring this with my friend Sarch. If you're thinking, so for me, I'm rectangular in my thinking, because I'm thinking more like it's like a downward rectangle, because I'm thinking more on the whys than I am the whats. And then people who are hyper conscientiously intelligent are thinking this way, so it's like a rectangle this way. So they might think a little bit of the whys, but not as much. But then people who have an equal proportionality of whats and whys, their thinking shape is a square. It's symmetrical, it's balanced, it's harmonious. Does that make sense? I don't know. Anyway, so we've discussed intelligence. The next one is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Now, I had this come up heaps, especially when I first learnt about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So basically, from my understanding, I can't quote it exactly, but it's a pyramid model, and they kind of align really nicely with the chakras. And basically it says that, you know, self-actualization is at the top, and self-actualization is the goal. It's being in this magical state of being able to improve upon yourself and upon your life, and actually expand, reach new heights, push past your potential, I believe is the actual definition of it. And the rest of the pyramid, so it starts with the base layer, right, which is the biggest layer, and those are your survival needs. Then I believe after that is something like your emotional family needs, like your heart space. Then it's like your ability to express yourself, might be reassuring it. And it's like until all of those, it's like you can't, until all of those are met, those needs, those base survival needs are met, you can't actually go to a point of abundance and expansion, which is self-actualization. So you won't be improving unless, you know, you have a roof over your head, you have, your bills are paid, you have healthy relationships, you know. And then the goal is, this model really helps people understand that they need solid foundations, so that when life hits you, because it inevitably will, you're not going to be brought back. It's sort of like a video game where you get your levels diminish when, you know, you get hit by your enemy, like your enemy attacks you and your levels diminish. But it won't go all the way to the bottom if you've, you know, have solid levels established. So if you have, so say you go through a breakup, it might, you know, cut you down one level. But say you go through a breakup and at the same time your job is made redundant and your grandma dies, then it's like boom, 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 you're going to get knocked down all the way to the bottom, right? But if you have your home, a roof over your head, food to eat, healthy finances, healthy relationships, safe people to talk to. Like, you maybe only will get knocked down like two levels, and then it's going to be faster for you to come back to this state of self actualization. So you're not going to have to do as much work to build that back up. So basically the question with depth and high ceiling is, does Maslow's hierarchy of needs play a part in opening up space to be able to think this way? Like, in a way, is being able to, the ability to think deep, is it a privilege? Because maybe I just grew up in a really healthy environment. Maybe my life is just really great and all my survival needs are great, and so therefore I can have all this extra energy to self-actualize, self-improve, which kind of sounds like, I can grow, I can find meaning, I can think deeply. This is a really interesting theory, but I've met too many people that have been through horrific life events, who've lived in poverty their entire lives, and whose brother or sister have been through the same exact circumstances, and they are low ceiling. And then that person is high ceiling. So I have to conclude that it kind of all comes back down to this innate thing. And then the next counter argument that I have is sort of the opposite, because this one's saying that when you have everything going well in your life, you're able to think deeply. And then the other one, which is the one, this is the one that I didn't mention in my introduction. Sorry, I forgot to mention it. The other theory is that your amount of trauma is directly proportional to how deep you can think, which is the other one, right? So it's like, on one hand, does the person who grew up in poverty, they kind of, because their survival needs weren't met, they don't have emotional space, or because they're thinking about survival, they don't have time to be thinking deeply about anything. So they're just kind of thinking about survival. That's one way that you can think about this. But then the other way you can think about this is that the person who grew up in poverty has been through so much more trauma, and therefore has more experience to draw off and think deeply. And it both make sense, right? Both make sense. And I'm gonna sew both into the same argument. One argument for Maslow's hierarchy of needs is that I know that personally, that when I am in a really good mental headspace, when things are going really well for me in life, when things are all my needs are being met, I'm thriving. When I feel like I'm thriving, I know that I can think deeper. I have so much space to just, at the moment, I'm listening to the Dialogues by Plato for the first time in my life, and I'm listening to it on Audible, and I'm not pausing or going back. Everything's just sinking into my brain. And this is heavy philosophical shit, right? And it's just, I don't need to revisit it. It's just boom, into my brain. And that doesn't happen when I'm stressed. I think that maybe that's the correlation. Maybe there's a correlation between stress and deep thinking, because when I'm not stressed, which I am right now, not stressed at all, my brain can just take information in. My retention is incredible, and then also my ability to think and find original and new unlocked neural pathways and ways to think about things, and original concepts and poetry and ideas, they just come to me. But maybe this is like a yin yang thing, because I find that I make my best art when I'm happy. And then I know that a lot of people make their best art when they're depressed. It's the whole depressed, starving artist motif. So maybe it's like a yin yang. I'm not sure. Maybe extroverts are one way, maybe introverts are the other way. Maybe this is an extroverted thing. Maybe the Maslow's hierarchy of needs thing work for extroverts. So if you're extroverted and high ceiling, you're more likely to be high ceiling. You're more likely to become a deep thinker if you're extroverted. Here we go. Here it is. If you're extroverted, you're more likely to be a deep thinker if you've grown up in a stable family environment and you have all your base survival needs being met. So Maslow's hierarchy of need is going to like work in favor of you becoming more of a deep thinker. And then the other probability, so if that's true, then the opposite is also true, which is that if you're introverted, you're more likely to become a deeper thinker if you go through hardship. Maybe, who knows? This is really interesting. And then, okay, so we've covered that. Let's move on to the next one. Consciousness. What is consciousness? Let's define it. To me, consciousness, as in not consciousness, but like a person's consciousness, is, well, let's define unconscious. That's easier. When a person is unconscious, when they are at the whim of these external forces of life. Whereas a person that is conscious is understands that there are constraints to which they can't control, but within the given circumstances of their life, they are able to riff and they are able to control and take power in their life and active participation, and they maximize that as much as possible. I hope that makes sense. Unconscious people let life control them, whereas conscious people control their lives to the maximum possibility. Yeah, let's go with that. So I think that it's really easy to... I noticed that these are two separate things in my grandma, because my grandma's not a deep thinker at all. Like, she has no idea what I'm saying half the time. Bless. However, she's conscious. As in, people who are conscious have their eyes open. They're awake. They are present to this reality. Yeah. Whereas people who are unconscious, they're sort of like numb. They're sort of living and not existing. Oh, sorry. Existing and not living. They're never thriving. They just kind of like found themselves in this body, in this life. They kind of just wound up doing that university degree, and then wound up doing that job, and then wound up, with this family and kids, and they're just kind of like, oh, well, how did I get here? And there's no real intentionality behind why they do things the way they do. So that's my argument.